Welcome to the Octiv Sweat Equity Podcast, a show designed exclusively for gym owners and fitness enthusiasts like you. I'm your host, Mark Fawzy. In today's episode, we're focusing on the theme of going back to basics, because if you don't get the basics right, nothing else really works. I'd like to introduce Storm Corbett, who's the founder of the Storm Centre, a successful fitness studio in the heart of Cape Town, and someone who we truly believe has gotten the basics right. Welcome, Storm.
Hello, Mark.
So for people who don't know this, actually we go way back.
We do.
Storm and I have been friends for a long time before either of us started our businesses. I'm good friends with her brother, and actually, fun fact is, back in the day, we were both doing Muay Thai fighting. And
oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. And for people who don't know, Storm was actually a really good fighter back in the day. And I was a terrible fighter, but we both trained at the same gym. And kind of that's how we got to know each other, other than Kyle. So, Storm, why don't you maybe start this off by taking us through like how, since then, how the Storm Centre came about and how it all started? Because obviously, if you look at it now, it's very impressive, and we all know as business owners that that's not how. It's never linear and easy as it looks on social media. So yeah.
Thanks, Mark. The Storm Centre started in 2019. We opened in April. It was basically a lunchtime conversation, and my husband owned Switch in the same building, and the top floor of the building was open. So over a lunchtime conversation with our business partner, we were like, well, we need to expand. Let's take the top floor. So we took the top floor, had no idea what we were doing, but decided we're opening spinning, heated classes, bar classes, nothing that we'd ever done.
Also
and
quite different to what was available at the time.
Very different. So that was the point, to open different classes, 3 studios on one floor, all running at the same time. Big ideas of every single class is going to be packed at every time, which obviously was a big eye-opener as we opened our doors. But that was basically it. Let's open another gym upstairs and offer completely different stuff. My husband came home and was like, we need to put a budget together. We put a budget together. I was so off with the budget. And that was, I think, at the end of 2018, and we opened in April 2019.
And what were you doing before that point?
I was at Switch. Gareth owned Switch with Steve, and then bought Steve out when he went to New York and America.
Yes. And
we were both just working at Switch, and I was doing the clothing mostly for Switch and the merchandise and stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Someone once told me, like, speaking about budgets and so on, whatever you're budgeting is probably going to cost twice as much, and it's going to take twice as long.
Do you know how much a reception desk costs?
Yeah.
I was like 2,500 Rand, no, maybe 12.
Yeah.
So my budgets were off. Yeah. But and then at the same time I was pregnant with my second child, and we got married that year, and Gareth's dad passed away that year. So 2019 was hectic. And then the following year was COVID. Yeah. So that's how we started. Poached instructors from other studios, had to train everybody. But we had a big dynamic group of people, so it was great.
Awesome.
It really worked out well.
And just talk me through that, because starting a new business while pregnant and getting married in the same year. I mean, I started my company the same year I got married as well, and it's hectic, and I think it just happens when it happens, right? But obviously that's challenging for obvious reasons of
budget
and having to perhaps take some time off when your baby comes and so on. How did you manage?
So initially we weren't planning on opening the studio when we decided we're getting married. So a lot of wedding budget went into the studio. So that was a disaster. Daddy, can you up the donation? And Peyton was born in August, at the end of August, so we're open for like 4 or 5 months already.
Okay.
So, and I had a 2-year-old at home, under 2.
Yeah.
Skylar was 18 months. So Yeah, we had our grounding pretty sorted by then.
Okay.
But I literally taught the day I gave birth.
No
So,
way.
yeah, I taught at
Yeah.
37 and a half weeks and went into hospital
That's
that
awesome.
afternoon, which I didn't know I was going into hospital.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and it was, I think when you own a business, you do what you got to do.
Yeah.
You're there, you put in the hours, you put in the yards, you wake up early, get things done. And I had a really solid team at the time. So when I went into hospital, I knew everything would be fine. And Gareth was still around,
of course,
part of the business. But with that said, she was born on the 28th of August. I was still in hospital getting invoices to pay instructors for end of the month.
Yeah, so exactly, because that side of the business doesn't stop.
That doesn't stop. Yeah. And so I mean, I was still doing month-end payments in hospital. But yeah, it's life and it's doable, you know?
Yeah. And in terms of team, because what you're saying to me is essentially, it rings a bell with me in terms of having a team of not just staff, but people who act like owners and feel like owners, because this whole concept of doing what needs to be done, you know, when you're an owner of a business and you walk into the kitchen and there's dishes, you'll do the dishes because they need to be done, as opposed to being like, no, those aren't my dishes, you know? So did you have a team at the time that you felt were invested enough?
I think in a team, you're always going to have those that step up and those that just sail on.
Yeah.
And I think we had both at the time. Those that needed to step up did step up. And those that didn't, I suppose, just carry on. But I think you recognize that in people, and people know when they need to step up if they're that kind of person. Unfortunately enough, we had 3, 4, 5 of them. A lot of instructors work elsewhere. So it's not really their priority. They come in, they teach their class, and off they go. We had managers in place as well. So it does help. And I think it also helped that Gareth was very much hands-on as well at the time. Yeah. To just keep everything.
And
just take over
co-invested. So it's somebody who you can obviously trust and rely on.
Yeah. And we've had like Leroy. Leroy's been with us, for like 8-9 years already. So some days he is really not interested, but on the days that he needs to step up, he's totally there. He's reliable. He's like, he could basically run the business without me.
Awesome.
Which is great.
Awesome. So, I mean, one of my first things I was going to ask you was, what was your biggest challenge? So obviously everything you've discussed, that it's all challenging, right?
Yeah.
What would you say was your biggest challenge when opening and building up to the open and even post open?
I suppose budget and not knowing what to expect. Cape Town, there's gyms on every corner. People flock in because your door's open and it's exciting and there's something new. And I think the biggest challenge still today is consistency. Is trying to keep your studio full, trying to change things, trying to always keep people interested. And group training is so instructor specific. It's really, really hard. Like, you find your instructor, you love that instructor. So you're not going to go to someone else's class at your studio because it's not me, or it's not Liesel, or it's not Gareth, it's not Leroy. It's
kind of like
Sarah.
A comfort zone. Yeah. It's who you get used to.
They don't know Sarah. They don't know how she teaches. So I'm not going to go to her class. So that still is one of our biggest challenges, is getting our clients comfortable with all the instructors that we have. But because I suppose fitness is such a personal thing, yet in a group environment, you stick to the people that you enjoy doing classes with.
100%. Do you have any kind of, have you built any ways to mitigate people being picky, or is it something that's still
it's so hard,
a real challenge?
It's so hard. We get the newer instructors to come join in our classes so people can see them. When we do introduce new instructors, we offer a free class so that our existing client base can have a trial class, a free class with the new instructor, and then give feedback. Also, because our level is quite high and our intensity is quite high, to get someone who can step in and be as good and as fit and as motivational
energetic,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's more of the challenge than actually teaching the class.
Yes.
Because you feed off your instructor's energy
and confidence and
totally.
putting yourself out there.
Yeah. So that's how we go about it. But it still isn't like the best way to do it, because it still isn't filling newer instructors' classes. And it takes years. I mean, we've been doing it for 7-8 years. I still don't fill my classes.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing
and
to
your
do.
name is Storm.
And I am Storm.
And the company's called the Storm Set. Yeah. No, it is definitely a challenge. I know even with my training, like when I get used to a certain instructor's coaching style, for example, they also get to know me and my abilities, and so it's easier. It's like you form a connection with that coach. Yeah. So definitely. So obviously this month's theme is back to basics, right? Which is like the spirit of it is if you don't get the basics right, then the bells and whistles don't mean anything. What would you say are the basics that you guys have focused on? Because, just knowing you guys and knowing your business as superficially as I know it, because I don't know your business deeply, it seems to me like you guys do focus on getting the basics right.
Yeah. So when we opened, we had 3 studios and I think 6 classes per studio each day. We had lunchtime classes, we had evening classes, and 2 morning classes. And over time, we realized that it was too much. So we scaled down. Less is more. Mm-hmm. So now in our new studio, we only offer 3 different classes. We've done away with all the extra fancy different and just adding on bits and pieces, the bells and whistles to just fluff up an exercise or a workout. So we're only offering bar, HIIT, and a cardio intensive workout called What the Fit, incorporating bits of the other classes that we used to have.
Yeah.
People get too excited and they actually don't come if there's too much, because I'll come at 6:00 in the morning. Oh no, overslept. Oh, there's an 8:30. I'll do that. Oh, actually I've got a meeting, so I'll get to work and I'll come at the 6 p.m. and then they don't come because I've had the whole day. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
So out of 3 or 4 opportunities of coming, they're like, oh, I'll go tomorrow. But if there's only 2, they're like, I've got to go because there's no other option. Yeah. So our back to basics is just keeping it simple. Yeah. Really just keeping it simple, downscaling, and just offering what we know we're good at. Yeah. And not the fluff. Yeah. Really.
Get the basics right first and the rest will follow. I even see it with when we onboard a gym and they've got 50 different membership packages, because they've got the student package and the seniors package and the off-peak package and the 3 times a week and the 2 times a week and the unlimited and the 10-session pack. And, studies show that if you give someone more than 2 options, they can't make a decision. They can't make a decision.
Totally.
So, and some of the most successful gyms that we've worked with, I've got 2 packages. It's literally
like take it or leave it.
This one or this one.
Yeah.
And then it's so much easier to make a decision.
And then people use their package because they're like, oh, I've paid this, I've got to use it.
Yeah.
Or I'll do this month, and then I'll do that next month. And that is unfortunately Cape Town as well.
Yeah.
Which I think we quite enjoy to a certain extent is our clients are all over the place. So they're training at different studios. So their cross training is amazing. So they'll be at us on a Monday and a Wednesday, at Sweat on a Tuesday, at Movement Lab on a Thursday, and yoga on a Friday.
Yeah.
And then more often you hear, oh my word, my bum's sore because I did a bar workout at the Storm Center.
Yes.
My legs are tired because I did this, or I did reformer at Movement Labs, my upper bodies. So they're actually getting more from spreading themselves out than just doing the same thing over and over again, and then they plateau and then they leave.
For sure.
Which is what we found with other businesses. Like you get to a point where you see your results, and then you plateau, and then they're like, I need to try something else. And then they disappear and they go try
they think there's like a silver bullet or something.
We'll go try CrossFit, and then they see results there, and then they plateau, and then they come back and they're like, oh no, I actually missed this. Yeah. So it's quite nice that people are now training at different studios and doing completely different workouts to suit their body types, which is great. And they're actually feeling like their workout at each studio is benefiting.
Yeah. Like we've definitely seen a big change from when we launched 10 years ago. Everyone had a gym membership. It was at a place, and that was where you go to train. Whereas now people do like to move around.
Yeah.
And, you know, we think it's maybe just Cape Town, but it's actually global. Even as a management system, like we have had to like rework a few things to change the fundamental way that our platform works to allow people to train at multiple places and not just at one place. So we see that in Cape Town, we're so spoiled for choice. It's actually like, if you think about it, there's so many cool places to train that are different. So it's definitely a global thing, like the whole on-demand mentality. You know, in the past, you would have like DSTV or cable TV, and you'd have to watch what was playing at the time. Whereas now we're so used to choosing what we want to watch when we want to watch it, whether it's on social media or on Netflix or whatever. And I think that that's a whole culture that's like is being instilled globally. You spoke about budget a few times. So tell me about that. So when
do you want to know my budget? There's no budget.
No. So in terms of like allocating cash and raising money, you know, when you start a gym, you're either spending your own money on starting it, or you're raising a loan, or you're raising investment. So how did that happen? Obviously, I know Gareth had Switch. I'm assuming that helped a little bit. Did you have to put in a whole lot of your own money? Did you have to? Because so for listeners that are thinking of starting a business or a gym.
So we have a business partner. So he is our investor, basically, silent investor. He's not involved at all. So that obviously is a huge help. We had to close Switch off or during COVID when gyms opened up because you couldn't share equipment. Yeah. So we did away with that.
And the whole concept is to move around.
And the whole concept is to move around. So even with sanitizing and wiping down it, like some people were just not having it. So we closed Switch. But it's a difficult one.
Yeah. It's also a sensitive question.
I don't know. Like if you've got a lot of money and you're desperate and you think it's the best idea and you've got good business advice, then go for it. But it's not easy. It's hard. I mean, I was 37 weeks pregnant, waking up at 4:30, going to gym, getting there by 5, opening the doors at 5:30. Like you just got to do it. And that wasn't my money. Yeah. But it was still my business, still my name, still something I wanted to open and something I wanted to do. It's not easy leaving your 18-month-old baby at home at 4:45 in the morning to get to work. Not waking up with your kids, that kind of thing. But if it's a big passion of yours and it's something that you strongly believe in, then go for it. We have just been very fortunate to have an investor in ours.
So in terms of your partner, so the investment partner, it sounds like you've had a good experience.
Thank you.
Yes. And this is one of those things that obviously us as a business, we've got investment partners as well, and we've had a good experience. Yeah. But I know so many people who haven't. And so that just comes down to, I always say, like, cash runs out, but shareholding doesn't. So like you have to be so careful how you raise the money and who you raise money from. Because at the end of the day, the money is actually one of the smallest parts of this equation. Yeah. It's the partnership that matters most. It seems like you guys have had a good experience with your investment partner. And as a business, we've taken on some investment from investors as well. And we've also had a good experience. And I put a lot of emphasis on making sure it's the right people, because something that I've said in the past is like, cash runs out, but the shareholding doesn't. You know, you take on investment and obviously you spend the money and you hope it goes well in terms of what your objectives were. But after the fact, you still partners with this individual or organization that has invested.
Yeah.
And I've seen it go well, and for us it's been good, but I've also seen it go badly, where that becomes actually the beginning of the end of a business.
And a relationship. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's so important to be aligned and that like difficult conversations are had at the beginning.
I was just about to say, there's difficult conversations that come with it when things aren't going well.
Yeah.
You know, and when you are using someone else's money, and because as a business owner, you're emotionally attached as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's even harder because you're like, it will work. I'm going to make it work. It's just this month.
Just trust me.
It's just school holidays, so everyone's away, and then your investor's like, really? It's just winter. It's just school holidays. It's just COVID. Like what, you know?
Yeah.
So we've had a good relationship.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are months where it's great and there are months where it's not great.
Well, this is where it's so important that whoever's the investor in the business has started and run businesses in the past.
Themselves,
yes. Because the problem is, like, we've got a VC partner, but actually they are entrepreneurs themselves, and they've been through
ups and
in
downs.
Their own rights, right? And that's so important, because other investors are people who've just made a lot of money doing something else, and they want to just invest money and they just expect a return.
They expect it to work.
And they don't, it's not a realistic expectation of how businesses actually run and how startups actually work, because there will be ups and downs. Yeah.
It doesn't happen in 6 months, you know?
Exactly.
Like, it takes time.
And it's not linear.
No.
It's
right.
like, yeah. Like the only constant is change and challenge. And like our jobs as startup founders and business owners is to solve problems. I was having this conversation actually this morning with one of our staff members, and we were just talking about how, like, actually no matter what role you have in the company, you're solving problems. And obviously the higher up you are in the company, the bigger the problems, right? And that's kind of what we sign up for.
But everyone's problems.
Yeah. Everyone else's problems, they eventually filter up to you. And what's difficult about that, what I find, is that it does definitely get to a point where it becomes a bit overwhelming, and you have to deal with that. And you, as the leader of the company, have to always like portray your best self.
Yeah.
Even if you're going through
the most
a bit of a dark hole. How do you, in your kind of day-to-day life, how do you navigate situations like that and deal with them? Because no doubt you go through stuff like that.
Yeah. So luckily we've got a really small team.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is on me, which is fine, because there's that bit of control that I have. So I know that if I've done something, I've done it. I'm not relying on someone else to do things. It's just a mess up when an instructor's sick or can't come in because of whatever reason. Then it throws me, because it's my day is, if I'm not teaching that day, it's, I know that I take my kids to school and then I do this and then I've got clients and personal training and blah, blah, blah. And if I have to slot in to teach another class, then it's no one else's problem but mine, because our team is so small. So no one else can cover because they've taught earlier that morning, or
they're maxed out.
They've gone to the next studio to teach. So that's like,
and also it's actually just not their problem.
It's not their problem.
Yeah.
So sorry, Storm, I'm going away for the weekend. Can I not be in on Friday? Yeah, sure. Cool. Yeah. I'll teach your class. So I've had to have those sorts of like hard conversations, even when people are sick, or like they say they're sick, and I'm just like, you know, you can still teach. And then I just advise them, like, come in, teach your class, tell the clients that you've got a bit of a headache, so that you're going to talk through more of it than actually do the class. People are super understanding if you just communicate.
100%.
And our clients are super chilled with that as well. Like, just tell us what's going on. We'll carry on. If you're not going to be jumping around doing everything, that's fine. But at least I'm not going to leave the class saying, oh, that instructor was really crap.
Yeah,
like, exactly. She had a headache. She did her best.
Well, it's that whole thing about being vulnerable and being able to be vulnerable. Like, and speaking of going back to basics, it's actually all about communication.
Everything's communication. If I'm not feeling well, I'm going to tell them, guys, I'm really not feeling well, so I'm not going to do the whole class with you, but let's go. And then they leave the class feeling like, that was really cool. At least you told us it was still a great class, rather than me like half-assing the class and not having told them, and they leave there and they're like,
exactly.
Like Gareth always said to me, like, teach every class as if it's the client's first class.
Yes.
So no matter how many times they've been to the studio, like, you got to give that class as if it's that person's first class at your studio. And they need to leave feeling like that every single time. And that's hard.
So like, it's actually very similar, even though like we're a tech company, we run a subscription business, right? So it's similar to having clients who are gym members who are paying you every month. And the way I think about it, and kind of the way we've spoken about it as a team, is that, you know, we've got a sales team, we've got an onboarding team, and we've got a customer service team. And, you know, some may think that once we've made the sale, we've got a client for life because they just pay us every month. But actually, I think that everyone in the company needs to have the mindset of, we need to earn that next month's subscription every month, because
it's so easy to go somewhere else.
Exactly. It's easy, and there's lots of options, and everyone is trying to be
different,
the best, right? So it's definitely, but back to communication, like even with our team, like in this day and age, we have a flexible work environment, fairly flexible. And since the beginning, I've always said, I don't care what time in the day that you go to gym, for example, or that you have a lunch break, or if you need to go and renew your car license, you don't have to do a half day of leave, but it's just communicate with your team. Make sure you've got your work covered. Make sure people know that you are offline for this time, and then it's fine. And then it works. But if you don't communicate, then no one knows where you are. It's frustrating, etc. Yeah. If you look at your studio, I mean, it's beautiful, right? It's clean. It feels more like a wellness center than a fitness studio, which is a really nice, like, calming feeling and so on. Was this always kind of the vision of what you wanted to build, or did it change over time?
No. So when we first opened in 2019, I always wanted the clean look because of Switch. Switch was dark and disco and no windows and like grunge. And I wanted the complete opposite for the Storm Center. I wanted the light, I wanted the windows, the color, fresh, clean. And then as time went by, and we moved Switch upstairs into the one studio, we made that studio pitch dark. Then all the other studios followed suit, and that's just the way it went. And then when we opened downstairs, I was like, I'm getting away from all of that. I'm changing it completely. Even when the sound and lighting guys were in the studio, they put up all the lights, and I was like, someone's going to have an epileptic fit. Firstly, there's so many lights, and it was just too much. I was like, take it off, take it down.
Did you consider maybe offering tequila?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Tequila, disco, let's go.
Yeah.
So no, I always wanted the clean look. It started off like that when we first opened, and then it just sort of followed suit and got dark. Everyone loves it. People do love that dark thing. Some people don't like to see themselves training. It is a completely different style. With it's dark, there's disco lights, there's loud music. It is cool. It's just run its course with us. We've done it for enough, and our early classes still have the disco lights. So the 6 a.m.s, because it's dark, I've still got some of the lights up, and they use those. But no, I'm super happy with the clean, fresh look. And for our launch in March, actually our goodie bags, when I spoke to people for the goodie bags, the entire brief was not a gym and a wellness bag. I don't want like protein and like gym pre-workouts. Like I didn't want that. I wanted more of a goodie bag that is what you incorporate in your life and your day to day. So we had bio oil, we had hair salon stuff, we had new muti, we had sexy socks, we had like an assortment of things that people will use daily, and then obviously the studio as the gym part.
Would you say that that's kind of what differentiates you? Is that feeling, or actually what would you say differentiates you?
Mark.
Because
I think it's our style.
Yes.
And the personal touch that we give. Like, often people will say, oh, I've been to the Storm Center, and I'll know that for sure, yes or no. Like, I can tell you, I'm really good at that. Like, I know if you've been to the gym or not.
Yeah.
I might not know your name, but I'll definitely recognize your face.
Yeah.
So I think because we're more of a boutique type fitness studio and not just a swipe your card and come in and go.
Yeah.
I think it's that sort of family. I spend time chatting to clients.
Yeah.
I'll email, WhatsApp message after first classes. How was it? Please let me know. So I spend a lot of time doing that.
So it's the feeling that people get when they...
Yeah. We often get told like, oh, I feel so welcome here, and which is great to hear. You got such a nice space. It's so clean. Everyone's so friendly. So we do get those really nice compliments. So I think that is possibly... And I think it's probably the level of class that we give. It's people know what to expect.
Yeah.
And I do also get told a lot that I'm fucking scared, and I'm worried about what I'm going to get in this class because of what they've been doing before.
Yes.
So it just takes it up a notch, and everyone can do it. Like, well, after the class, they're like, "Oh, okay, that's cool."
I got through.
Yeah. It isn't like social media can be super intimidating.
Yeah.
When we had all the heaters in the studio, the class was red and dark, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, that is the most hectic thing. I'm never going there. Like, I can't be seen in there." Yeah. And then that's just through social media.
Yeah.
But we've got like licorice all sorts in our class, like shapes, sizes, people, colors, ages, girls, boys, ages, everything. So I think once they've stepped in, they're like, oh.
Yeah.
And a group fitness space is intimidating to step into, no matter where you're going. Like,
no, for sure.
To go to any group class that is new for you, it's hard because there's always going to be people that have been there forever.
Yeah.
And then there's those super duper athletes, and and you're just like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. It's scary.
100%.
I am intimidated going to the silo gym to go work out in the weight section.
Exactly.
Like, I know what I'm doing, but I'm like, no.
It was actually funny in our last episode. I said, like, I'm probably one of the people that has visited the most gyms that you'll ever meet, right? Because it's what we do for a living. And I get intimidated when I join a class. Not that I'm very fit, but like, just I should feel comfortable in the gym space, but I get intimidated. So can you imagine someone who's like new to it? Yeah.
So we've tried with our social media as well. I've made it very clear, like, don't post the athlete.
Yes.
Because not everyone is the athlete.
Yeah.
You know, so try incorporate pictures and clips of everybody and like different stuff, and not just the person that looks the greatest.
More like the average person.
You know, so that it is like, look, and then because people compare themselves to like-minded people, and then they see like this amazing woman who's actually preparing for some competition that they don't know about.
Who's not living a normal lifestyle.
Not eating. Like, and they're like, oh no, I can't go there because there's people like that.
So speaking of which, have you found any fitness hacks or business hacks that work?
If anyone has them, please give them to me. No, consistency.
Yeah, consistency.
Like, keep it consistent and change it up. Like, there's nothing wrong with changing it up. It's very interesting hearing conversations with clients like, oh, I'm going to Sweat and then I'm going to Movement Lab, and then people almost get like scared to tell you.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, Storm mustn't know, or I feel bad. I'm like, you know,
I'm going to your competitor,
going somewhere else. I'm like, guys, it works. Go do it. Like, sweat workout is a great workout. Incorporating cardio is a good workout for you. Going to do Pilates is amazing.
I mean, you would prefer that to them not training, because it means that they're not coming back. Right. So
they panic. They're like, oh, Storm's going to know that I went here. And I'm sure when they are members of Sweat, they're like, oh, they must have known that I was at the Storm Center. But it's good for you. It's good to change it up. Just be consistent.
100%. Yeah. And business, in terms of running the business, have you found any hacks? These questions are intentional because I think the whole point is, like you said, consistency, and like the grind that we talk about of, like, you know, persistence and not giving up. I think that is what builds a business, and that's what builds health. There's no such thing as a hack. Hey?
No.
Yeah,
I haven't found the hack. If everybody had the hack, would all be millionaires.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not about money either. It's like people get a lot of money and spend it badly, and it doesn't work. Right?
The more you have, the more you spend.
Yeah, so, exactly.
I don't have a hack, no.
Yeah. So, Storm, I'm going to start wrapping up quite soon. We've had a really good conversation. I think I'm excited about, like, a lot of insights have come out of this. Would you do anything differently if you had to do it all over again?
No.
Cool.
No. It hasn't been easy, but I've never owned a business before. So it's been really interesting. There's been times where I'm like, I'm done. Let's close this. It's too much. I've got other things to do. But I do love it. And I think the reward is the positive feedback that you get from clients, from people, from just general conversation that you have with people that haven't even been to your studio. So I think that's the nice part about it, that you're actually making someone else's day better. People generally come to gym for their hour of me time, and they leave with a smile on their face.
Best hour of the day. Yeah.
And 100%. We are that place for a lot of people, which is great.
Yeah.
COVID was hard.
The C word.
Yeah, that was hard, but we did well online. We went straight online, and then when we went back, we've got 80 silent disco headsets. So we did all our workouts outside on the balcony with Table Mountain, and I think that saved the business, to be honest.
Yeah.
People were tired of walking on the promenade by themselves.
Yeah.
So they came and worked out on the terrace with silent disco under Table Mountain with people, but they were outside.
Yeah.
So that was great. So no, I wouldn't change anything. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot, like Gareth, when we did the studios, he was there at 3:00 in the morning mopping and sweeping.
Yeah.
Obviously I was home with the kids, but had we not had kids, we'd both be there, so it takes a lot. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of horrible work. It's a lot of delays.
Yeah.
When we first opened with a spinning studio, the wrong bikes were sent. So we had to send the bikes back. Then they sent bikes with electric monitors, so we had to have electronics running across all the floors for 25 spinning bikes, and then the little monitors would seize during the class. So it's a lot of damage control.
Yeah.
I've paid to come to a spinning class and my monitor's not working. I've paid to come to a spinning class and this isn't working. So, and then we had to send those 25 bikes back and get the next set of bikes. So the spinning studio, when you forecast like income per studio, that was just an absolute mare because nothing was working.
Yeah.
And then it was COVID, so there was a lot of like hard stuff that we had to deal with, but nothing that's not solvable. And again, nothing that people don't understand. It's life.
Yeah.
Like stuff happens, shit happens. Some days you have great days, other days you don't. But I think we've done really well with just keeping our clients like in the loop as part of everything. And I think that personal touch is what makes people want to be part of it, because they feel like they know exactly what's going on. They know who I am. They know who Gareth is. My kids are there. They bring their kids during the school holidays to sit while they work out. So it's a very family-friendly space,
So you've created a space that you like to be at.
I love my studio.
Which is huge. I think that like gym owners and trainers have such a big responsibility that they may not even know that they have the opportunity and the ability to actually change someone's life.
Change someone's life. Like the messages that you get from your clients when they've had a shit day and they just randomly message you unexpectedly, it's amazing.
It's
really
huge.
Really like, okay, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
I did a talk a few months ago at a CrossFit affiliate gathering, and I spoke about how my CrossFit coach changed my life, and not just from a health perspective.
You're ultimately someone's psychologist, let me tell you.
Definitely. You're a life coach.
Yeah.
And through conversations with my coach at the time, who was the owner of the gym that I trained at, I started a business and changed the trajectory of my career.
Yeah.
And like these things don't just, they don't just happen out of thin air. It's actually, it's a big responsibility and a privilege that you get. And it really shines through with what you've just said. I know I said we're wrapping up, but now we're going to wrap up.
Okay.
But before we do so, your long-term plan, or what's next for the Storm Center and for you yourself?
For now, just to keep going. We've had loads of requests to open studios in southern suburbs and Stellenbosch and Joburg, but like I said earlier, group fitness is so instructor specific. I cannot split myself into 4 or Liesel into 4 or so that's the biggest problem. So expansion is like it's a hard one.
Yeah.
Because you've got your client base, but then some of them live in the southern suburbs but still drive through.
Yes.
But it would just be easier if there was a Storm Center here or there. But I can't teach here, there and everywhere.
Yeah.
So we would love to expand. It's just a really tricky, it's a difficult one because people know what to expect and you might not get the same.
I think it's
because
wise.
the instructors aren't the same.
Yeah.
I can't drive to Stellenbosch, Liesel. You know what I'm saying?
I can imagine it's quite tempting to just.
It's totally tempting, and people are like happy to pay for it and do everything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and sending locations and places, and I'm like, yeah, but then you need to run it and you need to be the brand, but it's my name, so
exactly,
it's not,
Yeah.
So it's difficult, but it's not something we wouldn't do. It's just something I'm super cautious about. We've been with a business that did expand and it didn't work.
Yes.
It opened and closed very quickly. So it's tempting, but it's also like town is not that far.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah. And, we see a lot of gyms that they think that the way to growth is just to open other locations. And that just adds a whole bunch of complexity. So if they're not ready to do that, and if they don't do it really well, then it ends up affecting their original business, which is very successful, right?
Yes.
So we've just spent a while talking about the trials and tribulations of building and running a business. And obviously, like, the reason we've got you here is because you've built something very successful. So what goes with all the trial and tribulation is actually something that's very successful, and kind of sticking to what you do best. And I think when opportunities like that arise, when the right opportunity comes, you'll see it.
Yeah.
And perhaps it's the entrepreneur that approaches you that you think this person could be a really good operator.
Yeah.
Let's have a partnership, etc. But look, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy. You've got 3 children and a family and a big
school holidays.
And school holidays, which is even more busy than normal days. So I really appreciate your time.
Pleasure, guys.
Enjoyed the chat.
Thanks for having me.
I promise I'll come to a session at the Storm Center sometime soon. I'm a little bit less intimidated after this chat.
See, it's not so bad.
Yeah.